So this is a topic that's been a huge theme in my life lately. I can't seem to shake it off, nor have I been trying to shake it off because it's been a lot of fun. But basically being not seeming. And for me lately, what that's meant is that there's this state of being that I can choose to be. And it's not just the idea of it, but it's what it's being. It is it. And so I've been reminding myself, like, instead of just thinking about like the things that I want to experience and thinking about the kind of life that I want to live, to actually be it. Because what am I waiting for, right? There's no reason to do it later. Let's just do it now to the best of my ability. So lately, that's really been just like, for me, it's meant being the state that I strive for, basically, instead of working towards it and having it be an experience of something I'm striving to attain, but just but just simply shifting into being that state, basically.
And what state might that be?
So the state itself, it's in flux because, you know, we're always in different moods or whatever. But lately, that's the concept. That's the idea, is to be the state that you're looking for, that you want to be. And for me, you know, I'll wake up and maybe I want to be creative. And so I'll shift into being creative, which is something that I've struggled with a lot in the past. But a lot of my like time meditating and my time on psychedelics has been reminding me lately that I don't have to struggle about shifting into my preferred state. I can just simply choose to do it. And I know that sounds odd to a lot of people because it used to sound odd to me. This isn't a new idea to me. It's new that I've actually done it and tapped into it in an effortless way. And it's really brought me a whole bunch of usefulness in my life. But yeah, the state itself changes with the moment because, you know, sometimes you just want to be joyful and be full of that real elated excitement and have that be your drive. And other times you want to be more focused and, I guess, analytical sometimes and actually break things down with more thinking. But lately, the states that I have found myself being have been very relaxed, open, receptive states. But yeah, the state itself isn't actually as important as just the idea, I guess. The tool of being able to shift into being instead of like it being an idea and something you're attaining to or striving for.
When I think of being rather than seeming, this for me is how I interpret it is more in a social setting, whether it be one-on-one, whether you be around strangers or someone you're very familiar with. You know, we all have a tendency as a coping mechanism, I'm sure we talked about this before, of like only showing certain sides of you that you think will be easily accessible, so as to make as few waves as possible. You know, like you want people to accept you. So you, as you grow up, you notice the attributes and the personality traits that are desirable by society or by your family or by your peer group. They want you to be a way, so you try to be that way. And when you drop all that and you just be your natural state, yeah, it's transitory. Yeah, feelings and emotions are temporary and ephemeral and all that. But your natural state is love. That's not even where I'm going with this. I'm just saying, like, if you're being your authentic self without any pretense, without putting on an affect or, you know, dressing away, talking about only certain things that you think will be accepted, like, it's like you said about your gray cat. Remind me her name. Leah. It's like you're talking about how Leah used to be apprehensive. Now she runs the shit. Like, she's just doing her. Like, when I say being, I mean that phrase, you do you. Not in a passive aggressive way, in an empowering way. Like, You do you, like, and it will resonate with the people it's meant to. If they're not for you, they're not for you. So you just be you and don't worry about anything else. Don't try to seem away. Don't try to seem presentable. Don't try to seem amiable. Just like fucking be as real as you can and people will vibe.
So yeah, so what I'm trying to say, I'm glad you gave that a little bit more direction for me to relate to. I that's kind of in line with what I'm trying to say. So be yourself right now and let yourself relax and just be yourself, right? And for me, I think one of my reminders that I've been getting from myself and the universe is that, like, I don't have to work towards being. I can just be myself now and relax, and that state feels good when I let that take over. And so that's kind of been one of my lessons lately, is just like letting myself relax. I don't have to focus towards dreams and goals that are far away. I can be myself now. And like, as I realize that, that's when I get closer to those things that I'm looking for. So that's kind of what I was trying to say in my long roundabout way. But that's totally where I'm at with you.
Well, as corny as it sounds out loud, I stand by it. And now I just lost the phrase as I'm giving that. What I wanted to say is not to perform. Oh, yes. Let your light shine, like you're saying, your natural state. Just let the divine light shine through. It takes no effort. Relax into yourself, and you'll find that, like, even if you are being as unfiltered and transparent as possible, there is certain idiosyncrasies, or however you say that word, that there's certain things unique to your essence in this incarnation that will just shine through. So like, you don't need to try to amuse people or keep them entertained, or like I'm saying, you don't need to perform for anyone. Like, if you are being yourself, your light will shine through, and people will, like I said, people will pick up on that. And the thing is like, to be rather than seem, you already need to be in a state of self-acceptance, so you don't even need their approval. It's a bonus that people like your vibe. Like, it's extra because your vibe is enough for you. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And that's another part that I forgot I did want to touch on is in being yourself, there is no acting. Like, you don't have to put on a show. You don't have to try to come across a certain way in hopes to connect with somebody in their certain way, because that's all irrelevant, right? If you're going to connect with somebody, you're going to connect. You putting on a front isn't going to really help that authentic connection, right? So, but yeah, and these are really basic things I think we all know, but yeah, exactly. Putting on a front only gets in the way. It only creates more confusion, because ultimately people are going to see each other ultimately. And the front just is another layer there. But yeah, no, I just, that's been a theme for me so much this year, just in being myself, not performing, because I guess I've felt like myself for a long time, but I realized that there were parts of me that still were doing more performance than I needed to, extra shit. So yeah, we can roll right into the next idea, which is another like thing I've been living and breathing lately. This immediate feedback loop mechanism. Basically, the idea that what you put out, you get back, and and so being able to see that kind of real time is what I've noticed more and more, because I've realized, looking back, this has kind of been in my life forever. It's always been there. I'm just aware of it now to a greater degree, where I'm kind of having ideas in life, sometimes letting them pass me by, sometimes I'll play with it a little bit, but I noticed that the energy, a lot of times, that I'm experiencing that I'm consciously putting out as a vibration, energies mostly of fun and creativity and having fun, I'm noticing them getting reflected to me really quickly back in a variety of ways. And so it's just been something that kind of piqued my interest, and I've tried to open myself up to more and more. And the more open I try to be, I don't really have to try to be. I just notice like this is a constant moment. This is something that exists always. And at certain times, the reflection is so fast that it feels like I'm having a conversation with the universe in a way. Like I'm actually talking and communing with physical reality. But it's been that's been mind blowing for me lately, as I kind of uncover this feedback loop that exists in everyday waking reality and kind of talks to me, with me, and asks me. It's been super trippy and interesting lately.
So I love that we touched upon this immediate feedback loop the other day, because I've heard it maybe by Duncan Trussell, maybe by someone else, maybe by like a person in my real life, that it could be a way of interpreting karma, because I'm coming to the notion, it's making sense to me, that this whole like you'll have karma for past lives misdeeds or missing the mark, if you will. That's just an extension of your own ego, like savoring its separateness and its specialness, like, oh, like the divine force that animates us all, that is unconditional love and creativity and all this. You're so bad, like you're so deliberately bad that you're gonna have to spend an entire lifetime making up for wronging someone. Or you might be getting immediate, instantaneous reminders being mirrored back at you that you're not noticing because you're not being present enough. And and if karma is real, it's happening right now. If you let's give an example of another topic I have written down for later, which is misplaced aggression. If you have some misplaced aggression and you act on it, and it may be just a small little social faux pas or whatever, you're gonna be able to pick up right away on the other person's vibe. They're gonna be mirroring back to you that shit ain't sweet, or like y'all aren't good. Like you don't have to wait to meet them in their next incarnation 3 lifetimes from now just because you hurt their feelings or you like trespassed or whatever. Yes, people commit horrible acts, but like they're in their own personal hell right after the fact and probably leading up to the fact. So I'm just saying, how do you feel about this immediate feedback loop, this universe interacting with you? If karma does exist, it doesn't have to be a reward punishment thing, but like if it exists, is that kind of what's happening in a way?
So I think you're tapped into an idea that someone else was trying to explain to me and I had trouble understanding. But hearing you kind of go through this, things are clicking for me. I think that's a valid way to look at it, because someone was telling me that the idea of karma has been butchered over the years, and that it's not punishment kind of reflection. It's not like, oh, you did something bad, so now something's bad's going to happen to you. But that the idea is, like we were discussing, more along the lines of the energy you put out comes back, because like where else could it go, right? And because this is now always, it can feel like faster than or slower, but yeah, it always comes back in that instant, even if it looks like it didn't. But so I had trouble understanding what they were saying when they were explaining this to me, and now it's kind of clicking in the sense that so karma's not really something that's tied into negative acts, something that has to do with you being bad or good, or even positive, but more so it's just tied into action itself, in kind of an energetic sense where there's an action So of course there's going to be a reflection of that action, because that's kind of the reality we're in. That's kind of the game we're playing. So I do kind of like the way you described it, because it started to click on what they were trying to tell me a few weeks ago, and I totally kind of missed in that moment, and finally I'm catching up to. And it makes sense, because that in that interpretation of karma, it's not negative or positive, it's very neutral, and it's a reflection of the energy itself. Yeah, it's a matter of fact, it's a mechanism that just is a part of this experience. So yeah, I kind of think that's a valid interpretation. Something that I'll definitely play with moving forward, because I'm one of those people who don't really resonate with the interpretation of karma as a punishment. That never really made sense for me anyway. So this new way of looking at it may be something that is worth my time to explore.
And I think tuning into that conversation is only going to make us more present, which is going to enrich our experience that much more.
I've been having a lot of fun lately, and when I saw this prompt written down, I definitely didn't know where it was going, but I've been feeling so excited that I've been kind of, that saying, out of this world, like crazy. I've been feeling that way a lot lately as I just live my life. But so now that I know that that's not what we're talking about, I'll go into my interpretation of how we exist with consciousness. In that a lot of people look at this journey to Earth in this way. So let's just make some assumptions. Like, we come from a spiritual level, and we come down to Earth to be a human spirit, but mostly like a physical human. And then we like leave and go back into spirit. A lot of people look at it that way, linearly from a spirit perspective. But I like that you described for me that we don't like come into this world per se, but we come out, we bloom from this world because we are it fundamentally. Like, we are the structure of it. Yeah, it's as a fractal. It's a piece of us, and there's no escaping that. And I've been playing with this idea a whole lot lately, because the question that people have, even when studying the universe, is like, the universe is expanding. Where are the edges? Where's the outside? Where could it be? Is that non-existence, right? Like, because that doesn't exist. So that still blows my mind all the time. Like, I'm a human, and we exist in this place where there is no real outside of the system. Like, we exist in ourselves. And now I really understand that now more as I grow with that idea and try to understand it. It does make sense to me. Intuitively, I have a lot of guidance from, I guess, myself in understanding it. But it doesn't cease to blow my mind thinking about it that way. And that's because, like, for most of my life, I thought that there was an outside of the universe, right? And outer space. And then you realize eventually, like, no, it's all inside. This whole thing is inner space. This whole thing is inside. Like, where could there even be a border? What would that look like? So I could have this conversation forever, but this idea just continues to blow my mind.
You said it. I feel like anything I add is gonna be us talking in circles. I just find it, I find it liberating too. Because it kind of gives you a seed. God, this is taking me forever, but I promise it's worth it. It kind of gives you a seed in your mind that you can form a healthy sense of detachment, a healthy balance of detachment. So you're not so caught in the trappings or the web of your interwoven family tree. And what I mean by that is like familial guilt, like, oh, that's my so and so, I love them, but if I met them as a stranger I would want nothing to do with them. Like, oh, you can't, I can't like not live up to their expectations. That's my big brother, that's my mom. Like, you're tied down and limited by what you think others want for you. Most people operate from any decision they make. First, they have to do the mental loophole of like, is this something that mom or dad or whoever that I care about, what they think of me, would they approve of this? And that's not freedom. That's not free will. Like, you realizing that you come out of this world, like I came. This can seem insensitive, like if you're a mother, but like I came through you. Like I didn't come like from you. I came through you. Like, yes, you are the necessary means. Your body carries me. That's nature. But like, I don't owe you anything because of that, and you don't really owe me anything except for like safety until I can take care of myself. Otherwise, like, I should feel free enough to do whatever like what they say, do what thou will. Like, you should only do what you want to do. And I think if you don't understand that you came through your mom and out of this world rather than into this world from your mom, I think that saves you a lot of trouble in actually like not following the flock and stepping in shit, so to speak.
Yeah, I think over time, what I've been realizing is that so like a lot of the experience, especially with birth as a human, it's this is a co-creation experience. It's not one-sided, it's every-sided, right? Like in the terms of the child, like the child has an experience from a spiritual level, kind of chooses to come through into this physical, especially from the Buddhist belief. They think that the kids really choose, like the specific parents even, down to a lot very small details. And so like the spirit chooses it from the choice, I mean from their level as a choice, and the mother also from the conscious and sometimes physical human level also making this choice to do this, have a child. But my realization has been like, not only is that a co-creation, but most of our life with other people is a co-created experience. Not only here as physical beings choosing to share our time with each other, but also like from a spiritual level, there's agreements down there too that we decide to meet up in physical life and continue that connection in a different way, right? Because we could just keep it there on a spiritual level. There's no need to. But for some reason, we decided to want to have this story life or whatever. And that's one way to look at it. Not everyone believes half of the stuff I just said there, but those are some of the assumptions we have to make to interpret it that way. But basically, my realization over and over again is like, oh, okay, this is a co-created experience as a human. Maybe that's a huge reason why I wanted to be a human, so I could co-create things together, because like we've probably been doing it for eternity on our own. Why not play a game where there's more social interaction, right? As spirits, I feel like of course we'd love to do that on any level. So
I just want to say that collaboration is a beautiful thing, and it is, if you can get out of your own way, it's what you should be doing here. It's how you create new forms of art. And I'm talking out of my ass, but I believe in what I'm telling you.
yeah, no, it's really basic but true info, right? So, you know, one thing I've always identified with from the youngest of ages was the yin yang itself. Looking at it, just it looked cool. Yeah, I was drawn to it from an early age. It looked cool, and I remember that was the first thing that I ever tagged everywhere. That was it. That was the first thing. I definitely just drew those all over the place everywhere I went for years, even before I understood anything about it. It was, oh, I don't, I think white and black are I think it is light and dark, yin and yang. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. I mean, we're gonna have to check. But I remember that was one of those things I didn't even know why I was drawn to it, and I literally drew it for the longest, and eventually started to understand as the years went on. But I oh yes, dude.
Maybe that was your past life, like your ancestral higher self nudging you in the right direction towards Eastern philosophy.
Right? And when I was younger, part of me even thought about that. And I didn't even, because I remember when I was younger, I didn't know if I believed in past lives or even like other lives at all. I didn't know if I believed in that, but I still thought maybe something was pushing me from another side towards it. And I was young even then when I started to realize that maybe I was under 10. But it really started to make sense for me well before I was even a teenager. It started to click over time, and I still continue to build this strong relationship with it. But I think that kind of going to Alan Watts and his perspective of dreaming, both sides, light and dark, and how over time you can explore it in a way that is exciting and really freeing, kind of, but it also still plays into the human illusion at the same time. He's got some interesting things to say.
He's someone I think we're all sort of sleeping on. I can only speak for myself, but I've really only heard him in reference to. I've only heard like excerpts and stuff. Same with like Abraham Hicks, and I've read a couple Ram Dass books, and I love everything I hear about Ram Dass. But like, I'm always getting these hand-me-down philosophy takes, which is fine. I'm still getting the message. But with Alan Watts, yeah, his thought experiment was like, say this is a dream, because it most likely this is a dream. If you are awareness or source or whatever word you want to put, whatever blanket you want to put on the mystery, you would eventually become discontent with being content. Like if everything's perfect and a non-issue and pure bliss and no contrast, no adversity, no struggle, no sense of suffering, like this will get old. Like how the idea is like how long until you would want to create a button that you press that's like, surprise, let's throw you a curveball, see what the fuck happens, see how you roll with it. And it kind of like keeps things really interesting if you can kind of remind yourself that might be what's happening here, and it can provide some levity.
I always thought that was a super cool way of thinking about it. And in one of his talks in one of his recordings where he talks about this, it's been chopped up and sampled a million times and thrown on a million esoteric beats or psychedelic beats or just chill, calm, rainy day beats. And so I've heard it a million times. I've heard him talk about this. And I like how he puts it because it makes sense, right? When if let's say that we came or are in this state of perfection somewhere as a spirit where things are easy for us and they're just as we wish them to be at any given time, of course we would want to eventually play a different game, something a little exciting, right? And so I like that take on it because it makes a lot of sense for me. But I've also been in conversations where that idea terrifies people, and I think my interpretation of their fear is the fear of the unknown. I think for them, most often than not, it has to do with being afraid they may uncover some truth, something that's negative that may be true about themselves. But we've talked about this before, and yeah, we all know that like when you're uncovering yourself, things only get better. Like you don't have to be afraid of uncovering something because things only are there to help you grow and learn and be your true self. So I have not really identified with fear for so long these days, those kind of fears anyways. And so talking to people that do can be an interesting conversation for me and just reminding me how many humans come to the table afraid of every possibility unknown. And I'm just like, what? That's what excites me. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. That's what excites me. I don't have to be afraid of it. If it's something that I don't like, okay, I will move on, right? But it's not so. Being afraid of something that I don't know just doesn't make sense for me. So I don't really identify with it. But so let's brighten the corners, because if you do it yourself, the universe will work with you also. And we've talked about this in terms of just taking those few steps and letting go and surrendering your control to your higher self, which will help you take even more steps.
Brighten the corners. What I'm perceive that to mean is basically, you know, the shadow self. Let's use the analogy of like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is your conscious mind. Everything below that is the subconscious mind that we're not aware of unless we do deep contemplation with meditative practices, or, you know, there's a few different ways to get there, basically, to get underneath all the layers. And when you brighten the corners, you know, you were just talking about the fear-based of, what if I find out something about myself that is not desirable, or even worse, is deplorable? Well, I can tell you in good faith that won't happen, because if you brighten the corners, if you lift up the rocks, whatever analogy you want to use, you're bringing light to the dark, and all you're gonna find is your true self, and all your true self is the oneness, is what's happening, is the like the ever expanding and shifting force that is creating all of this dream that we're having, that we're collaborating on. Yeah, brightening the corners is not a scary thing, because if you find something out that you don't care for, you can decide if that's something that you truly identify with, or if that's a layer that you've been dragging behind you, like a ball and chain for years and years, that's just limiting your ability to fully experience this realm and all it has to offer.
Yeah. Carrying it around like a ball and chain doesn't help us at all. That's what I've had to work to shake off the last few years of my life. And man, I feel like I've shaked it off. I'm no longer carrying my balls and chains. That sounded funny as I said it. But yeah, life's good when you brighten the corners. It took me a while to realize that. And, you know, brighten the corners, clean out your closets, do all of those things that'll help you figuratively, literally brighten up and enlighten yourself as you do it. Scrub the mirror. I like that one a lot. Get some clarity, you know, take a deep breath and be yourself. Because yeah, I agree with what you said, that when you're uncovering yourself, you're really not going to find that thing you're afraid of. And if you do, you can let it go. Because it's not yours. And just in the act of like knowing you don't prefer it, you've already created a new you that doesn't have to resonate with it. A lot of people forget about that power that they have, that superpower of letting things go. Yeah, and that's one thing that I've been reminded with a lot of people in my life, people that I see going through great transformation and great growth, but they still have some attachments to suffering in certain ways. Yeah, and yeah, because I think they would agree with me in saying that that's not even really a part of who they are or want to be, but there's definitely attachment there. And, you know, they're exploring that and uncovering it. I've finally made it to a point where I don't even think it's negative per se, because I see how some of these people use this what looks like a suffering attachment and sadness or loneliness. I see how some of them have actually used it in a positive way for themselves to grow. Well, this is harder for me to break down, but I'll try to. So I see I've seen within some of my friends this box that they put themselves in. It's a really sad, lonely box where they feel isolated. But I know that's their chosen isolation. And in this isolated state, I see them, experience a lot of depression and sadness for like their relationships not working out around them, even though I can tell this is like something that it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy as they choose their loneliness. And they just start to believe I'm a lonely person. This is a story that they kind of start to tell themselves. But so I stopped for the longest. I was like, this is so sad and negative, and why are you guys choosing to be like down on yourself? I realized over time that they actually can use this experience in a positive way in terms of getting to know themselves from a different perspective. And because like ultimately they're not really being their true selves in this experience as they identify with loneliness and being alone, or so I think. And but in taking this perspective on of feeling sad and alone, they can actually simulate what that feels like for them and move forward knowing how relevant is that as a being, because we all have our own relationship with our loneliness. And so I've noticed that they can get a positive outcome with these experiences sometimes that no one else would ever see. It's only for them to see because they're learning about themselves through this. And so I finally realized, oh, okay, maybe some of my friends have chosen to go through these extended periods of loneliness and sadness, not because they're actually that loneliness and sad, but because they really want to simulate this and in turn grow and transform through that. It's hard, right, to break down, but that's a general.
I'm not saying this is the gist of what I'm hearing, but one thing I got from that is, are you saying kind of like the contrast is serving them because they're playing that role of the small self, of the isolated individual, like that melodrama is playing out. Their higher self is finding out that maybe that isn't what's the most fulfilling to them, and they're getting, like we play hot and cold as a kid, like they're getting warmer, they're getting closer to their true realized self. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
That's pretty spot on, because it's a journey of finding what is relevant for you, and working with those things. And in this journey for them, they're identifying how relevant is this. Their higher self is identifying how relevant is this journey of loneliness and lonesomeness for my experience here as a spirit or whatever. And in that way, I see it as a very positive thing, because they get the feedback, even maybe not as a human, but on another level, they do get the feedback, and they can work with it from there. So I don't even understand my own take on this completely, but I'm starting to realize that there's another way of looking at it, and that it can be a positive thing. It's happening for you, not to you. That's a cool way to say it, because that feels like what I'm trying to say, very much so, is that it's experience happening for you. It's not to, you're not the victim per se, even though it really, really feels like it in certain moments. And I'll agree with that. But once you start to understand this is an experience that I have a part in shaping, I am creating, I'm not as much of a victim as I look to be, as I appear to be. And that's for everyone else. That's for everyone individually to kind of create their relationship with in reality. And that's kind of what I'm realizing. But I have chosen, myself, like, if I'm a victim of myself, I really do feel like I have a huge shape in the experience that I've been having in physical reality. And the more conscious that I get with it, the more fun it is. Like, so it's easy for me to see, but I've also been in other places for years where I didn't believe any of that. And that just wouldn't have made sense to me if you took my mind there. So it's an interesting conversation to have when you have both sides of the spectrum to argue both points effectively. But yeah, it's happening for you, not to you. And in that sense, I can relax because it's kind of like a tailor-made simulation game.
It is, like you're saying, it is a learning experience. It's a moment for growth, and it is completely catered to your exact needs at this moment in your incarnation. So like you can look at something as whatever the situation may be. It may not be something that you enjoyed. It may be something that caused you great pain and suffering, but regardless, it is happening for you, not to you. It is sharpening your sword, your spiritual sword. It is getting you more in touch with what truly matters.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about. It's about aligning with the things that are relevant for you in any given moment. They don't have to be you. You don't have to be them. You don't have to identify fully with them, but just what's relevant for you at the time, and you can let go of everything else because it's not yours.
Something I heard someone say recently that is a really cool way to kind of like prime yourself out of those negative states of mind is like, okay, let's say right now I'm feeling a combination of anxiety, neurosis, paranoia. I'm just trying to think of like undesirable down feelings. So let's say I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling like nervous, I'm feeling just a vague sense of unease throughout. Okay, so let's say this is my analogy right now on the spot. You ready? Okay, say oh my gosh, this is going to lend itself to Christian themes, but let's say your body is, your inner world is a temple. Let's just call it a temple, okay? Something sacred, a sanctuary, right? Anxiety, depression, ecstasy, sense of serenity, all these like happy or sad or abstract, good or bad or both or neither feelings are inside of the temple, right? They can't be bigger than the temple if the temple is encapsulating them, correct? So like never, like you can like focus in on whatever feeling you're feeling and not only know that it's temporary and fleeting and it too shall pass, but even more importantly than that, like you can let it swell up, you can let it get as big and bad as it wants. It still can't overcome you unless you let yourself identify with that emotion and that feeling and that thought, because it's inside of you. So how could it be bigger than the thing that that is hosting it? Does that make sense? Like, am I way off, or is that super beneficial?
So what's so cool about that idea for me is like it's so obvious. Like you are infinite and you are the thing that contains it. It's just a piece, and not even a huge piece per se, but it's just another element, idea, piece, whatever it is. And now I've let it get away from me and it's become elusive, but it exists inside of you, right? And so it's not that big a deal either way. It doesn't have to run your life, or, I mean, it can. You can choose. Yeah, that's the thing. You can choose to let it do that. But yeah, no, I really like that. That's really well said, because it's housed within your consciousness. And so let it get comfortable and give it the space it requires and no more, or no less.
It's a file in the filing cabinet, so don't let it become the filing cabinet, right? Okay, that rolls right into so we talk about priming ourselves and mental loopholes to try to get you in a positive headspace. So what do you think of when I wrote down, and I we talked about this for a moment yesterday or a few days ago, sitting / standing / lying down. That's all you're ever doing. Everything else is literally a figment of your imagination.
Yeah, I do. I want to let you go ahead and take it because I'm struggling to remember exactly how that went.
This is something I heard years ago, and it was impactful for a while. And it's like with these throwaway phrases, you forget about them because life gets in the way. But think about this and tell me if this is empowering or liberating, because I find it to be. Whatever mental anguish, whatever suffering, whenever you're going through it, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, whatever it is, those I jump to those 'cause those are the two that most people are suffering from in our part of the world. Um, and that's for a lot of reasons, but that's besides the point. I find great peace and equanimity in the fact that, like, no matter what's going on in the story that you're telling yourself in your inner narrative, um, regardless of that dialogue, you're always just either sitting down, as a human at least, you're always just either sitting down, standing up, or lying down. So, like, ask yourself, check in, like, really, and ask your intuitive self, like, the quiet voice that we've discussed in the past, not the loud, overbearing, like, speed addict of your brain. Like, ask yourself, how am I doing right now? Am I fine? Is there anything pressing right now? Is there anything urgent to my well-being or the well-being of others nearby that I care about? Like, does anything really matter, or am I making this into something that it doesn't need to be because of my own sense of character importance? Like, does anything really matter? Am I just sitting here, standing here, lying down right now, and I can just chill the fuck out?
Now it's coming back to me. Back to me. I liked listening to that idea the other day because I haven't really heard much of a take like I haven't really heard that perspective often, and it's another really, like, basic realization, like, most of the time. Yeah, you exist in these states, and we get really in our head, right? And we get caught up in our drama. But yeah, and we can relax, come out of that, and that takes you back to meditation, right? Be here now. What you doing? Sitting, standing, laying down? That's funny. It's so funny to think about it in that perspective because we're in these bodies, and so, like, we have to kind of be in those states. It's so fun. And yeah, if you were to just, like, time lapse the human experience, it'd be a whole bunch of standing up and sitting down and laying down and standing.
1/3 of each. 1/3 of each. That's all we're doing.
That's funny to think about. But yeah, if you can get out of your head and be there, meditate with yourself, you're ahead of the game already. If you can just get that far. But that's a really cool take to think about from that perspective of just like, oh, dude, we spend our life sitting, standing, and laying down. That's how we live. And then we lean over to the side, we reach, we stretch a little bit, but that's basically all we got. We got this big advanced evolution, this body that's been through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, just so we can sit, stand, lay down, and maybe swim once in a while, which is kind of like laying down. Yeah. So it's super fun, which makes me remember I need to go do one of those floats in a float tank. I've been wanting to do this for a minute. Yeah. No, I've never done an actual float. I've been invited to, but.
Okay, this next portion of this session is just me ranting and raving about how we need to do that ASAP. Because and you can stop. No, I don't stop me. I'll say it because I said it before, probably to you. But, like, oh wow, it was transformative. It was restorative. It was like, it was a reset. It was an afterglow. It was so medicinal, and I didn't even have any, like, astral plane experiences. I didn't feel like super trippy or anything. Like, they say you can have visions and stuff because of the darkness and what have you, but what it is, and I know you probably know this, you probably looked into it enough or heard about it enough, it's brilliant. It's like a little self-care, like self-love, treat yourself type of thing. It's like a little spa that you get your own room. Obviously they have one of those, like, oh, I don't know how this will work if you have to wear, like, a wave cap, or I don't know what you would do, but, like, it would be like one of those, like, white people, like, ceiling like hotel showers that comes like straight down. And like that it's your own like disposable little hotel soap and all this stuff. And then you basically get into a bath that's like a little longer than 6 feet, and the water is the same temperature as your body. So you basically, it creates the sensation that you can't really physically tell where your body ends and the water begins, so you melt into nothingness. And that's why a lot of people that don't have psychedelic experience or meditative experience or transcendent experience, they often report back that they like were fucking, astrally projecting and stuff. But in and of itself, I did it in the morning. I've done it twice. Best. I've been sitting on a gift card for like years. Like, it's one of those things that like you, the only time you put it off is whenever you're neglecting your own self-care. Like, it's something I should be doing once a month, and I would be the most peaceful person alive. It is. So I did it in the morning. I got finished at like 9 a.m. I think you do it for like 45 minutes or an hour and a half or something like that. But you don't really take a nap. You kind of just lay there like you're just floating, and it's the word. And I felt so calm, like my nervous system and like all that. Like, I felt so calm, relaxed. Like, I recommend anybody take an edible or have some mushroom tea and then go do this, and you will feel fresh out the womb in the most like healing way ever. Like I'm saying, it's a reset and an afterglow, and it's so simple.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a few years now. I follow a few different float meme pages, and they're so good. I'm like, I gotta get in the water. So definitely sometime soon. Yeah, we are water. It's all water. This whole world's water. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. So let's definitely get to that.
All right, that was my float endorsement. Lastly, I want to discuss part of spiritual practice is being a good boy. And what I mean by that is, let's say someone is telling you about something, and it's something you already kind of know a little bit about, but instead of stepping in and adding your 2 cents, you sort of feign ignorance in a compassionate way. It's not like if someone's telling you about the TV show The Big Bang Theory and you like pretend like you don't know what it is so you don't have to hear about it or something like that. It's more so like if someone's telling you about something that you don't really care that much about, you're being a good boy in the sense that you are like yes anding them. Like you're sort of like hoisting them up and like making, because it's whatever they want to talk about. Like, you're sort of encouraging them to create more vulnerability and openness in interpersonal relationships. So if someone's talking to me about like how they like volunteer at church or something, like instead of me identifying with my own personal beliefs about that institution, and also without enabling, like any negative aspects of it, I will, like try to get them to share more. I will try to like pull it out of them when they're talking about something they're passionate about, even if it's something I don't give a fuck about, or if I like think it's silly. I'm trying to help people have more self-belief by doing that, and I think that's a good practice, being a good boy.
So I have something that kind of is along these lines for me in my life right now, where I've got some friends who are working at really corporate jobs that even they don't like identify with all that much. And this is a few people. Well, they say they don't. They say they don't love these jobs anyways. They say that they don't want to do this stuff forever and that they're not that excited about it. However, there are times when then out of nowhere they just open up to me about really positive experiences that they've been having at work with this supposed job that they're not excited about, that they don't like, that they say themselves that they don't really like. And instead of like reminding them like, yo, I thought you didn't like this place. Why are you still working there? Why are you giving them your time and your soul? I just kind of give them the space to share with me their experience and what's going on for them in that moment. And that's kind of where I've been really conscious with making sure that I don't don't block an experience by saying, but wait, didn't you say this beforehand? Because I just want to give them the freedom to feel however they feel. And especially if that means that they're falling in love with their job that they once hated. So like that's awesome to see if that's the case, which it isn't always the case. But so that's just one example that I've had. But that like I also have things with my parents that are kind of along those lines where I get out of the way and I make sure to open up and give them the space. I really want them to know that they can just talk to me and connect, and that there is a part of me that does not have any judgment on what they're going through. And I think that maybe is the value and the exercise that I'm seeing, is myself becoming a less judgmental person in these moments, because we still all have that little bit of us that is discerning. I won't even call it judgment, but just like where you make the decisions, and helping me become a more open person, I guess. And I'm not only getting out of the way of the conversation, but I'm also getting out of my way at the same time. So,
and let me clarify, this is not the same thing as if someone's telling you a story and you're like repeatedly like, that's crazy, wow, awesome, cool. No, this is the opposite of that. Like, whether it's something that you personally resonate with, you're engaged, you're active listening, like you are trying to get them to build upon their own ideas by just like giving them little like oomph, like yeah, like if we were playing volleyball as the analogy, and like they hit it to you and you just hit it back so that they can hit it again. Like you said, you're getting out of the way of the conversation, because if you quiet the ego, you realize that like, why do you need to say anything about anything? You're just here sharing this experience. Like everything is just an excuse to be together.
yeah, that's another thing that I've been reminding myself, is like, I want to support you. I want you to feel supported. So even if this is something that I could never do myself or would never want to do, I support your love for this. And it's this is especially about things that they're passionate about. And that's why I think it's so funny. And that's why I think it's so funny that I have this example of friends who are working jobs that they say they're not passionate about, but then there's all these moments of passion. And so, but I'm not here to like remind them like, hey, this is you're giving me both sides of this. I'm passionate and I'm not passionate. I'm not here to remind them of that. I'm just here to kind of experience it with them and see where they end up as they ride their waves, and what they choose, what they like about it, and maybe keep some of that or move on from it, whatever. But yeah, that was a cool kind of place to take it. I didn't see that coming from the prompt itself. I didn't know that was where we were going with it. But that's another thing in my life, like, I have to remind myself of daily, because when I'm tired and when I'm not patient, when I find myself sleepy and irritated, sometimes I don't hold the space quite as well. So it's something that yes, it's a practice. So it's something that I definitely have to remind myself to do every single day. But it's not hard to do. It's just like sometimes I may not be leaning towards it as much as I would prefer to. So there's a conscious relationship for me.
Get out the way.
Bang, bang.